And for this patient story, we really want to share with you the experiences of young adults in Stockport with diabetes. Now, this can be quite a dynamic time in a young adult's life. There's also a general increase in the level of responsibility and independence that young adults have. They'll be facing new opportunities to develop social relationships, as well as being exposed to things like alcohol and drugs. And patients have shared that actually during this time it can be quite a daunting and frustrating period to manage diabetes through.
I've been diabetic since I was about 14, 15, so I sort of had enough time to realise what typical normal life was, and then all of a sudden I got dropped that I was type 1, and then your world sort of goes upside down because everything you know really has to change.
I found out about diabetes in November 2022, and I've only had it for 2 years, and it's been quite a bit of a challenge. It's had its various ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster of a ride. I've had times when I've loved having it, and I've had times when it's been really annoying.
With diabetes affects every decision you make every day. You always have to consider how it's going to affect your blood sugars and how it's going to make you feel.
I'd say it can be quite lonely sometimes, especially if you meet people that don't really understand it completely or don't really, it's not really been a part of their life. It can be hard to kind of explain it.
You don't realise just how much of your normal life is affected. Literally everything that you do has to change, whether it's going out the house, going to the shop. You constantly think you can never truly switch off.
So the Diabetes Transition in Young Adults project is a pilot, an explorative pilot, and it's seeking to really strengthen the engagement of young adults to not only improve and support them with their diabetes management, but also to empower them with the knowledge and experience so that they feel confident to self-manage their diabetes into adulthood.
You don't suddenly become an adult at 16, you actually have this transition literally for several years, and you kind of in a very turbulent period of your life. And maybe we ought to tailor services around how it fits with you rather than you fitting in with us, which is very much how it was in the beginning.
What I thought was if I get them in as soon as they're diagnosed every week for an evening session, for a day session, whatever suited them every day for 4 or 5 weeks, taught them all we could teach them about living with type 1, then they would understand what it's like living with type 1, they'd know all the skills that they needed and they could self-manage their diabetes. I had to try and think of a way to get them to re-engage because the clinics weren't flexible. They were told on a certain day, told on a certain time, but it wasn't suitable for the majority of my patients because they were starting new jobs, they were at university, they were away a lot of the time, they couldn't come to the clinics. So what we ended up doing was sending out WhatsApp, sending up texts to the patients, and found that they engaged a lot more freely if I gave them an opportunity to decide what day was best for them. What day, what time, and I worked my clinics around them rather than the other way around. And we found that worked really well. We had 100% attendance when we did it that way, so I thought that was the way forward.
So with a hospital appointment, because it's so busy, you would usually be seen once every 6 months, and we're sort of there in between that gap. It's you get given targets from the hospital with the consultants, and then you're not just left to your own devices in between those meetings. There's someone you can talk to if you're struggling. We do things a lot more informally. And I think most importantly, it's not you going to clinic, it's you're going to go see Chris and Kyla. It's the personal relationship between us and them.
I had a transition where I was going to the adult side before the young adult team came in. It was like, that was night and day as it was in terms of, realised that, okay, that's it, there's sort of very hands off completely. Then I got put onto the young adult side and it was like everything's back to being hands on, but in a really good and respectful way of you. I think it's nice to have like a slightly more informal kind of dynamic. So for example with Chris and Kyla, because they've got diabetes kind of it sort of affects their life as well in different ways. They can offer a lot more practical advice.
which is sort of different to like what a GP appointment would be.
Obviously, when I first got diagnosed, it was always just you was sent to the hospital clinics. Everything to do with your diabetes was done like there and then. I found it really helpful since coming here because, especially with these two, Kyla and Chris, because they relate to diabetes. So it's not just someone telling you how to live your life, because they're not going to tell you something that they know isn't realistic.
The role of a youth worker is to sort of make the heavy stuff lighter, so it's more about building confidence, self-esteem, and most importantly the peer groups that we're trying to get sorted together. We've been doing sort of social education nights on different topics, just certain things for adult life that we need to prep people for, which all of them are so much harder when you've got diabetes. It's with other people, you meet other people, it's a social group, you can bond there, which is something we're really trying to build in Stockport.
The socials as well. I was able to meet someone who invited me to football once, and now it's like a regular thing. So every week, every Wednesday, I go and play football with them. And if we hadn't had that social, I probably would have never met that person. So yeah, I think just having like extra support and having someone else to kind of speak to that's not like your GP. It's more kind of like a friendly vibe.
I'm really good friends through these groups, which is nice because I've never really had anyone to talk to who has diabetes around my age.
Growing up with type 1 diabetes, I think there was only 2 people in my whole school. I had no one to talk to about it, or no one to like check up, like how you doing, and ask basic questions that you would. And then all of a sudden, when Chris had organised the football, you've got a bunch of lads that you can have a laugh with, have a kick about with. And they're always checking up, like, how are you getting on, how's your sugar's been, how are you finding this new monitor? And it's just conversations that you never have with anyone until there's things like this football in place. It gets you out meeting people that are in the same situation as you, and you really do need it sometimes, because there's a lot of times where you feel like you can't go to anyone.
So the efforts of our young adult transition and diabetes project have seen a massive increase in the attendance rates to lots of the clinics, and also a slow reduction in the DNA rates, which is really positive, and it shows that the team are really managing to develop those positive, trusting relationships with young adults, so they feel more willing to engage and with the tailored support that we're offering. And also the feedback from patients themselves that we've gathered through patient feedback events and verbal feedback from patients is that the most important thing for them is that they feel supported, listened to, and heard and respected, and that's something that we're really striving to provide through this project.
And I think that's what this project has allowed us to do things very, very differently from the very traditional way of, this is the rhythm and the structure that you have to rigidly fit in, and clearly that's not fit for purpose. There's that option there of talking beyond just this is a disease. This is life. And they can pick and choose a little bit about who they're going to interact best with, and then we then bring in the other people in to support different elements of their care. So I think it's that multi-pronged bit.
That's a really important element, is each of us in the project do have something very, very different to contribute to action. And I would say we are just at our infancy of being able to actually access them and reach them as part of this project.
It's refreshing and it's nice to be able to come to a place like this in a relaxing setting, because I feel like I've engaged a lot more with my diabetes since meeting these two.
So one word to describe the transition service would be caring. Pretty simple, but I think that's the best word.
Exceptional is what I'd go with.
Is a godsend.
Either life-changing or incredible.